All right, it's an episode of All Beings Considered. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome back to All Beings Considered. All right, Dr. Heath. How the heck? Happy Thanksgiving, Dr. Heath. Here we are for our special. This is our Thanksgiving special.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, happy. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? I was not invited anywhere to anything, so I'm staying home.
You can come down here. You're invited to my place for Thanksgiving.
That's all right. I mean, no offense. To be like, not that
that's all right.
Not that I wouldn't want to, but that's a long trek, and I also have a lot of work to do, and that's kind of what I want to spend my time doing is the work I have to do, not driving and
eating delicious vegan food at my place. Got it. And listening to Spanish. You'll be mostly listening to Spanish people speaking Spanish in my house. Yes.
Are you getting good at your Spanish now?
My Spanish is good. Like I when I practice it come back. My Spanish is pretty good. I know you haven't heard me speak Spanish very much, but it's pretty good. You know,
okay. We got to go to the slaughterhouses and
I'd be willing to do that. You make a date and I'll bone up and I'll I'll learn a couple vocabulary words so I can use it effectively. Like, you know, I'm a little bit, I'm a foreign speaker, so I speak it a little like, you know, but I speak Spanish.
That's how you speak your English too.
I know. Thank you. Yeah, I sometimes do, I suppose, because I'm looking for the best word. So sometimes I have to find it in the memory banks. But Dr. Heath, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have a Thanksgiving. It's the first time in a very long time. I normally do not do Thanksgiving, and now I will. But I'm grateful for so many things this year. And I think that's really what it's about, is to try to like take stock and be thankful for something. And I'm thankful that we have such an incredible guest today, which I'm hoping that you will, whom I hope you will introduce. Her name is Kathy Strickland, Dr. Kathy Strickland.
Dr. Kathy Strickland graduated from Mississippi State Veterinary School in 2004. And she worked as a small animal emergency veterinarian for 16 years, 8 of which when she owned her own small animal ER in South Georgia, which I just became familiar with South Georgia. So I'll have to find out where that was, because I'm fascinated by South Georgia.
Oh, we were just talking about it before. Yeah, I love South Georgia. It's a beautiful part of the country.
And when COVID hit their area in 2020, she closed her clinic and worked relief at other ERs. And it was during this time that she was looking for alternative positions outside of standard clinic work and ran across an ad for Alpha Genesis in South Carolina and applied and started working at the beginning of December 2020. And we will talk to her about her experience there at Alpha Genesis. And she was recently interviewed for that wonderful New Yorker article that was just published, and we will dive into lots more stories I'm sure she has for us. So I'm excited.
Yeah, that the curse of the runaway monkeys. They killed a few of them. One was actually recovered alive. We've been covering it on almost everything we've done. We covered on Vegan World Radio. We covered on this show. So I'm excited to talk with her as well. Mm-hmm. You kind of look like Curse of the Spider Woman right now because of the light coming in.
This has never happened before. I don't know if it's the time of the year. We've never done All Beings Considered where the light is shining through my window. Yeah. And I have the shade down, but I can't.
You look like Angelica Houston in the Addams Family right now with the light right on your eyes.
That's the one thing I remember from the Addams Family movie was the way they always lit her eyes like that. So
yeah, because it was an homage to Curse the Spider Woman. I see. At least finally, I found a movie reference you got, and I'm grateful for that today too. Let's bring on our illustrious guest, Dr. Kathy Strickland. It looks like she's having a little bit of video problems.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
But we'll get her on shortly.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do it.
It's so hard. Oh, there she is. Yay.
Dr.
Hey, sorry, my internet is not wanting to cooperate tonight.
No problem.
We can make it through.
Yes.
I introduced you with your bio and everything, and I just want to start out kind of asking you, before veterinary school, before you decided to go to veterinary school, where did you grow up and what was your early relationship with animals like?
Well, I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, um, between multiple East Side islands and actually on the beach.
Oh,
Um,
oh, wow.
I was one of those kids in the neighborhood that everybody brought, sick animals to and stray animals to. Had a bunch of birds that I
Oh no. It's in and out. That's the problem with,
South Georgia.
well, I don't think she's in South Georgia now. Actually, I don't know where she is.
Yeah, she's in South
We should
Georgia.
ask. Oh, is she in South Georgia right now?
Yeah, that's where she is.
Well,
She's over in there. She is. Welcome
that's the
back. So
problem.
we left on the word birds.
Birds. And
yeah,
where are
you
you
know,
right now?
I had a bunch of. I'm in Savannah. Yeah, just
Oh, okay,
outside
you're
of
still
Savannah,
okay.
but yeah, Savannah
Perfect.
area. Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, so I always, had an affinity for animals and related to animals, like I think most of us do, better than people.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
I always had an interest in doing something with animals.
Yeah. So did you have pets growing up?
I did. We had one squirrel that I didn't release that was
Oh.
too sick to ever release. But yeah, we had dog mainly. A lot of kind of just like neighborhood cats all over the
Mhm.
place.
And what made you
Rural
okay.
Georgia.
Yeah, it's a problem in rural Georgia for sure.
Yeah,
The internet is
it
and
hasn't
this
gotten everyone.
StreamYard, it takes a lot of
A lot of
juice.
resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
let
think
me try it without the video and
Let's
see if
do
it'll
it.
hold on
yeah,
a
we
little bit
could do
better.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, what led you to want to go to veterinary school? And did you have any jobs before veterinary school?
It was kind of a meandering sort of thing. Um, Initially going to college, I was interested in veterinary medicine, but then I got in college and I had more fun than studying, so I was not
Mhm.
so sure about it. And ended up getting a history degree as my undergraduate. And actually, it was one of my very good mentor history professors that actually pushed me to look at vet school because I was working for the vet there in town and he saw how much I enjoyed it. So as I was finishing up my history degree, he was like really pushing me to still consider veterinary medicine. Even though I was like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get into vet school. So, but he kept pushing me, and that kind of led me back into applying to vet school.
Oh,
That's
amazing. And
good
what was
mentors are
the
always,
yeah, what was the clinic like that you worked at? Like I want to get a feel for the South Georgia veterinary scene, before in the before times, what that was like. Oh no, oh she jumped out. Now she's back.
got her. Got her. Got her. Got her.
Okay. So I don't know if
So
you heard my
sorry about this.
question, but I want to learn more about the South Georgia veterinary scene before vet school, like when you were working at this clinic, what it was like, cuz I'm always fascinated because I worked in veterinary clinics starting in the 90s and it was much different and it was a small non-corporate clinic and things are a little bit different than they are now. So how was that like for you?
Yeah, very much so. This was actually did my undergraduate in Alabama, and so that's where I
Okay.
worked at this clinic full time for the last couple of years of undergraduate. But yeah, it was a rural clinic, one owner. Not a whole lot of resources. Closest referral.
Oh no. He's out again. Coming back in. Yeah, when I worked in the 90s in a clinic in Concord, California,
Yeah.
same thing, owned by the veterinarian, and we expanded to 3 doctors.
Hmm.
It was very much like a family sort of situation, and we knew everybody who came in there. Okay. Oh, she's out. We're gonna try
I
without.
think she's here. She's here.
All right. Yeah. Tell us about the
Yeah. So,
doctor.
yeah, so no referral centers close by. You know, they were a few hours
Mhm.
away. So, you know, in a lot of cases it was, you know, he did what he could, you know, or there wasn't anything that could be done for that animal. He was mainly small animal, did do some cattle work, which I did enjoy going out
Oh.
with him to do. But he didn't see horses. So most of my experience there was the small animal work. But yeah, I loved it, and he was another great mentor, you know, really into the medicine
Mhm.
and explaining all of his decisions and why he made the decisions he did. So
That's amazing. And like this is the area before Serenia and Convenia for all of my veterinary people who now we rely on those drugs. Do you have a feel for like what were some of the major illnesses that those animals were facing that came to the clinic? I imagine
we
we
saw a
saw
lot of parvo. We saw a
yes.
Oh.
lot of parvo.
And now it's like the era of anti-vaxxer. Everybody's suspicious of vaccines and like literally like parvo.
Even for their
is
animals, what are they afraid of for animals? They're afraid their animals are
yeah.
going to get
Just
cracked by the
same
government.
thing, like it causes cancer and all of this
Oh.
stuff. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
being in
Kathy,
a rural area, it wasn't that we necessarily had like an anti-vaxxer sort of mentality. It was more
is more
Probably the cost, I'm guessing.
maybe, or
Here we go. Got her.
yeah. Okay, so it wasn't, of course, the anti-vaxxer mentality with you. It was
yeah,
the
it was
what was
more
it?
being in a rural area and dealing with a very undereducated population. So there was a lot of client education that went along with what I did in his clinic, and that was very helpful for me as well. With knowing enough about what we were dealing with to be able to explain it and break it down to the owner level.
Yeah. And so going to veterinary school, was it what you expected? Were there any challenges or surprises with veterinary school? You went to Mississippi. So what was that like?
Um,
Uh-oh.
Mi-
Yep, she's back. Hold on a
Yeah,
second.
she's back.
Give me a second.
Come on, StreamYard, hang on for more. All right.
Yeah, so at the time they were doing the problem-based learning curriculum, which was fairly new at the time, as opposed to the standard didactic curriculum. So it was a very different way to learn, but for me it was very beneficial, because I learned how to research myself and be able to look things up and be able to understand and comprehend. So for me, it was great. But you know, I know there were some people that weren't real crazy about that curriculum, and since I think most schools have kind of morphed into a kind of multiple combination of the two.
Yeah.
But I really like hands-on that I got.
I wonder if she has like a smartphone with video, if that would be better.
Maybe
you
it's
could-
still going to run into upload. We can ask her.
Yeah, but it always seems like StreamYard maybe does
Sometimes
better
it
on
works.
people's phone.
Do you want to switch over to an iPhone? Do you have a smartphone or something you'd rather use? Maybe it might. Sometimes that does the trick.
That sometimes it works better than laptop.
Yeah, I mean, we can try it. And I don't know.
And we don't need headphones and mic if
I'll get
you don't have
video
anything
any better, but yeah, I don't know if I'll get video any better, but I mean, at least talking will probably be better for my phone.
Well, let's try it out.
Yeah. Yeah, let's try it out at least and see if we'll get something better here. If it works.
You can use that same link to join Dr. Strickland. And yep. Well, it's funny because it's almost like when I was talking with Dr. Judith Sampson French last time, she was talking about the democratization of veterinary medicine, and she was kind of talking about like educating the clients. And it sounds like Dr. Strickland here is saying, well, that's what we were doing. You know, we were educating the clients. So it's almost as if we maybe, do you think that we had a more democratized vet med culture in the old days, and that's something we've lost and we need to regain? Or is that something, or am I imagining these stories?
Yeah, I think we definitely did, because it seems like there was a more of a relationship with our clients than there is now. And maybe it's because of the shorter, I don't know what, I don't know why we can't have clinics like I grew up with in the 90s, why things are so different than they are now. I don't know if it's the
because
fact
of the
that
spectrum of care, and I mean, now it's, in order to have a clinic, it seems like you want to have all that gold standard every time, so it's hard to have that without kind of corporatizing it. Maybe people also had a different relationship with animals.
Hey.
Yeah, it was a much simpler time. Hey, Kathy. So yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna walk outside actually and see if I get a little bit better signal.
Okay. Amazing. This will be great.
Living in a rural area.
Yeah, we were just kind of talking about how things are so different in that there seemed to be more client education, talking to clients when I worked in a general practice back in the 90s than there is now. But I don't know if maybe we rely so much on videos and so much on handouts, or so much on our customers, client service representatives to CSRs to deliver a lot of this information. All right, Howard, you're back. You're a bit of an echo or delay. Do you know why that would be?
Because the mic of the phone is picking up your voice.
Oh, is that just because we don't have a headphone situation?
Yeah, let me see if I can fix this. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I have echo cancellation turned on for Dr. Strickland.
Okay, cool.
Let me see. Hello, tech. We can hear her a little bit. Check. I could hear myself coming back. Yeah, I can hear you a little bit.
So yeah, tell us about going to Mississippi, and was it what you expected? What was the training like there? And your thoughts on, were there terminal labs? How did you feel about those labs? Has your perspective changed at all?
My perspective has definitely changed. It wasn't really something that I was too concerned with going into vet school as far as the terminal labs. Like, I knew that was a part of it. But also, even though we were offered other options, it was kind of explained to us as, this is just something you need to do so that you can learn. But now, especially with a lot of the newer alternatives, that really is not the case. And even though we did surgery our second year in school, which was nice, but then it's like another 2 years before you're doing any more surgeries. So it's not like, aside from running it through at one time, you still needed somebody to be with you to walk through your first couple of surgeries to get comfortable with it,
Yeah.
So I didn't really feel like there was a value to those surgeries at all. And honestly, we didn't really do anything as far as the surgeries go, as long as there wasn't a mistake that they couldn't have recovered from. Yeah, they couldn't have been used for thoracic surgery again. But I kind of felt it was more, the school didn't want to put the resources into the aftercare that would be required, more so than it was too difficult of a surgery to recover them from, which is how it was explained to us.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because then you're missing out on the post anesthesia recovery and seeing how your patient would do. But
Right, right, and a lot of the ICU management that's needed after those sorts of surgeries, if that's what we're learning, So, I just it wasn't something I really put a whole lot of thought in going into vet school, but especially now, with honestly just having a whole new perspective on things. Since my experience with AGI, it just really isn't necessary. And like, there's some really awesome computer 3D models that they're using in some of the tech schools that even are much better for learning on than necessarily a live patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember what kind of patients were part of your terminal labs in veterinary schools? Was it dogs and?
Yes, ours were all dogs.
Okay, wow.
Ours were all dogs. They were all beagles from the Purina lab that I guess were being phased out. At least that's what we were told. And for our cadaver labs, those had been sourced from the USDA, is what we were told. And again, we're told, these were animals that, because we discussed, like, well, why can't we be using shelter animals? Because, like, our county was overrun with stray animals. And we were told, USDA rules, we couldn't do that. But then by the time I graduated, Dr. Busby, who did surgery at the school, started a mobile spay-neuter clinic that a lot of my classmates took advantage of to learn the high volume, high quality spay procedures on. So that was nice, that we actually not only learning on animals whose lives we were saving, but actually doing a needed service for the community as well. So, and that's really blossomed with Mississippi State. That's a huge part of its curriculum now. And his program is actually spread to other schools, is my understanding.
Yeah, that's amazing, because that's kind of what we did at UC Davis when I was there. So what did you end up doing after veterinary school? What was your first job?
It was a mixed animal practice, but I took the job as a small animal vet to mainly manage the small animal patients. And I was trying to get into emergency medicine at that time. I had done quite a few externships at emergency clinics that had kind of been my focus once I found out that was a thing. Outside of the...
Oh no, lost her again.
When you say small animal practice, we're talking about... Could you explain that? Because
there's just coming back.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to feel the air, see if
Yeah. You're still a little robotic. I think we're kind of in and out. Oh, there, I heard you well there.
Okay. Well, I was trying to stay away from the road noise, but I might have to get up against the road to get a decent signal.
Oh yeah, no, we didn't hear the road, so you sounded great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so small animal meaning dog and cat, no exotics, and not doing any of the farm animals, equine sort of stuff. So he had some farm animals that he would see that would take him out of the clinic. So I was there to kind of cover the clinic for the small animals on those days that he needed that. But the whole thing was that there was a new emergency clinic in the area that was opening up. They were hesitant about having a new grad. So it was, come work at my clinic for a year, get your feet wet, get the shareholders comfortable with you, and then maybe that'll turn into an emergency position. So,
yeah.
Did it work out?
Well, not exactly, but I did end up with emergency position somewhere else the next year.
Okay, that's good.
What drew you to emergency medicine?
It just really kind of fit my style. One, I am a night person, or at least used to be. So, those hours were actually appealing to me as opposed to working regular banker hours. And then I also enjoy the sort of the fast-paced nature of it, but also the intense nature of it. Like
urgency.
Having to make quick decisions, and my decisions literally are life and death decisions for these pets. So I actually kind of enjoyed that pressure. Not so much these days, but when I was younger coming out of school, I did actually enjoy that pressure, and getting to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to do in a a regular practice setting.
Yeah, sure. And then
and again, I was going to say, and again, I always had really good people around me that were willing to show me things, specialists that would come in and help me through procedures so that I would be comfortable with it the next time I saw it, that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite procedure to do?
Oh, I don't know.
Or favorite kind of case to get in that you're like, yes.
I mean, my favorite cases have always been like the diabetic cases. They can be difficult as far as getting owners to understand, and sometimes you're not talking about a 1-day treatment. But the complexity of those, and with what all's involved, I've always kind of enjoyed.
Okay.
So yeah, those are kind of my favorite ones to get. But at the time when I was enjoying surgery, I didn't mind having a GDV or a splenectomy come in either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've never done a GDV. Like diabetic ketoacidosis freaks me out. I'm glad there are people like you out there who can manage those. But what made you want to open your own ER and run it?
Mainly we were not interested in relocating, which unfortunately, for most emergency, you've got to be in kind of high population areas. And I had worked both in Savannah and Jacksonville at that time. And we would get a lot of calls from like the Brunswick sort of area, that central coastal Georgia area, of people who were needing emergency care. And, for whatever reason, they weren't going to make the drive one way or the other. So it was really feeling like there was a need there, and knowing that it's a place that people like to take their pets on vacation with them. I kind of felt like there was a need there. And, and again, most of us open practices because we want to be able to do things our way. So there was a little bit of that in it as well. But, I enjoyed it. There are times I miss having my own practice, but the problem was it's just being the only doctor trying to cover that is a lot of work. And going into it, I was kind of young and thought I could hold up. And then towards the end of those 8 years, my body was telling me, we can't keep doing this. So that was a big part of it when COVID hit and staff was hard to come by. And I just couldn't afford to keep the doors open if I couldn't do any work and see any clients. And people were staying home. They were afraid to get out, and staff was afraid to come in. So I just decided at that point, I'm kind of
All
into what I can afford to do, and maybe I just close this and then go work for people who are able to keep the doors open right now and help them, be able to do that.
Is that how Alphagenesis?
Yeah. How did you find out about Alphagenesis and what inspired you to work there?
Oh, just looking for, I worked that summer of 2020 at other ERs where I was driving 2 and 3 hours at a time to go work, 12-hour shifts, and I mean, there was definitely a change in the owner attitudes and what we were dealing with. People were becoming less and less patient while we're having longer and longer wait times. And, there were some areas where the emergency clinic was the only clinic open even during the day. So I was like, there's got to be something else I can do with what I've got going on. So I started looking into all those alternate careers, the government work and that sort of stuff, which, we're not hiring at the time. So, but just, cruising on, Indeed and other job boards, came across an ad for Alphagenesis. And it was talking about, working with primates. I was like, hey, that sounds pretty fun. And then, at first I was like, I'm definitely not qualified. I don't have any lab animal training. So I let it go. And then after a month, the job reposted. And I was like, well, if they're not having anybody apply, all they can do is say no, right? So, so I applied and they called me almost immediately. The attending vet called me and I talked to her. And we actually discussed that what I was looking for was, kind of a more steady schedule, and a place where my patients could be the main focus of my medicine without having to worry as much about the cost involved. And I was led to believe that's what Alphagenesis did.
Yeah. I mean, that's what drew me to shelter medicine, and especially one shelter I worked at. It's like the dogs and cats we got in, we got in some of the most difficult cases, and we got to see them every day and see how they'd recover. And I think that's the appeal of lab animal medicine too. It's like, oh, you get to know these patients and you get to see them, and you don't have a client attached to them who's may not understand veterinary medicine. Everybody here understands veterinary medicine and welfare, so it's very appealing. But what ended up happening? What was your first impressions working there?
Honestly, my first impression was, oh, I don't know about this. The first day, we had like a little short safety meeting, going over bee virus and, wearing your PPE
Hepatitis
and that
B.
sort of stuff. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, going over just the zoonotic potential of a lot of stuff and, how important it is to maintain your PPE at all times and that sort of stuff. But then from there, it was kind of like, now just catch up with the other doctors in the clinics and just follow them from there. But I had no scrubs. Like, you're not supposed to bring your own. They're supposed to supply it.
Yeah.
I had no scrubs. I was having to fight with the other staff, even the animal care staff, to get my scrubs back after they had been washed. And there was a lot of kind of, I mean, honestly, it kind of felt like a lot of disrespect at the beginning. And then I go into the clinics and they're kind of not as clean as I was expecting. But, I asked some questions and I was told, it's just like this. It's, impossible with monkeys to kind of keep things clean and that sort of stuff. So I was like, well, okay, well, I've already made this move. I'm going to try to stick it out and at least give it a few months and kind of see. And then the doctor that I shared an office with quit within the first month I was there, after our first Christmas, because she didn't have anything more than 6 months working there on me. And she was actually coming from a large animal background. And so the first Christmas week, there's nobody experienced on there, and me and her just having to try to figure stuff out. And there wasn't any.
No.
The answers we were getting were not helpful at all. So,
what?
Oh, you're in and out now.
What is Alpha Genesis known for? Like, what kind of work were they doing while you were there?
Of monkeys and selling them to other laboratories, as well as they can handle large volumes of importation of monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
So that was primarily it. And, most of what I would deal with in the clinic would be problems in groups, the breeding groups, either a lot of diarrhea and weight loss, as well as sometimes there would be a fight that would involve a few monkeys that, where we'd have to deal with the trauma.
A fight between a few monkeys, and you'd have to. We lost you there.
Probably break them up and sedate them.
Yes. I've heard from other lab animal vets lots of finger amputations because they bite off each other's fingers.
Like their own fingers too, I've heard.
Yeah. Oh, there she is. And I remember her talking about in the New Yorker story, like monkeys chewing through their leg to the skin, to the bone. Oh, there you are. Are you back?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my signal just totally dropped out and then came right back. Yeah, so I mean, it was mainly, mostly, like laceration repairs, finger amputations, that sort of stuff. Just from them getting injured from some sort of altercation in the group itself. So, the medicine side of it I liked, but, I immediately noticed that there were like some husbandry issues. The cages weren't being kept clean. So stuff like that had me concerned right off the bat. And then I just decided, well, let me stick it out and see if I can just, kind of get into the swing of things and maybe things will be better.
Yeah. And how are the monkeys housed there? What do their cages look like?
The larger groups are outside in either chain link or aluminum of paneling, making a large enclosure building where they can be kept inside in a smaller chain link area to deal with, when it's too hot or too cold, to help maintain the temperatures. And then there's a large volume of just single cages that are just put into like large metal buildings. They're just kind of like stacked in there.
Yeah. And how many were there at that facility that you're responsible for caring for, and how many staff for those?
I mean, at the time, the first time I looked at a census, there was about 4,000 that were at that location in Yemassee that I was working with at the beginning.
Wow.
And then, of course, they're always shipping out monkeys and bringing in monkeys. So, it's kind of a fluctuating number.
Mm-hmm.
So who's the customer? I mean, who's funding all of this?
Mainly private labs and a large portion of NIH money through different avenues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these animals are
but there are some
all over the country to be tested on.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there are some kind of big name researchers
Yeah. And how many staff are working there to care for around 4,000 monkeys?
There are a few big name researchers.
You're in and out, just so you know. If we might have a disjointed conversation.
For the vet staff at the time, we had 3 vets starting off, and then about 12 vet techs that were responsible for monitoring all those monkeys. And then they probably have about 20 to 25 animal care people that are the ones responsible for cleaning and feeding the animals. And then another team that's about 15 to 20 people that are the processing team. They're the ones that put the IDs on them, the tattoos, make sure they're TB tested, get the initial samples when they come in. And then there's a whole separate lab staff. That's probably another 30 people or so.
What kind of stories or what kind of realities would you like the public at large to understand that you think that they don't understand right now about places like the Alpha Genesis lab you worked at? Like, what kind of message do you want to get out to them to make it in the spirit of transparency?
I mean, the big thing is that we are not caring for these animals the way we are told that they are getting cared for. The Animal Welfare Act is like bare minimum care, and that's not even getting done. So they're not getting fed every day like they're supposed to. They're having moldy food left in their cages as their only source of nutrition. The cages are not getting cleaned out. They're, have broken areas where it's easy for them to injure themselves, reach through to another monkey in another cage that they don't know, that results in injuries. And then the basic husbandry, like the not keeping the areas clean enough, was resulting in the sharing of parasites and bacterial infections of the GI tract that then would, kill a young monkey because they don't have the immune system to deal with it. That was the most shocking thing to me, was just that the basic, simplest stuff that is needed to care for them and to make sure that they are healthy enough for going on to research is not getting done. And then they're being injured by the way the staff handles them sometimes. Especially, if one escapes.
You even implemented some like parasite treatment in the monkeys that they weren't even doing basic, GI parasite protocols, it seemed like. Is that true?
Right. We didn't even have like a regular basis for trying to give a general dewormer to the colonies. When we looked into it, the substrate of the cages hadn't been changed out in years. So, we're dealing with, hookworms and whipworms that have been in these enclosures, for 7-8 years, that are, just leading to potential resistance. So, even if you don't care about the state of the monkey enclosure, that's not good medicine if that's what you're trying to do research on.
Yeah, I mean, you hear this all the time. These universities, or even Elon Musk, they buy a bunch of monkeys and a bunch of them die, and their excuse is always, well, they got to me sick. When they arrived, they were ill. So judging by, according to what you're saying, that's, of course they're arriving ill. Of course they're not going to make it.
Yeah. And you filed
in a lot of cases,
right?
Yes, I tried, as well as at least I was told by other employees that they had as well. But nothing ever came of it. Even at the times where we had, hyperthermia deaths from the monkeys being left outside with no water, or in the winter where the heaters went out. They never came in looking for the specific things that we complained about. And most of the cages were in horrible condition. Like I didn't understand how that wasn't having something said about, because I had read through all of the regulation documents, and it's just something that just really seemed to not be a concern for the USD inspectors that I saw come through.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And what was the culture there among the workers? Like, were there other workers who were voicing concerns about this too, or did you kind of feel all alone in this?
Once I started speaking up more, there was, I would say, a handful of us that tried to work together to try to push for improvements. But the general staff, no matter what position they were in, was mostly apathy. They just went in. It was a job to them. They didn't have any, excessive care about what was going on with the animals one way or the other. They just wanted to go in, get their jobs done, and make sure that they could leave early in the day. We had problems with alcohol being found in the refrigerator in the break area, finding drug evidence in certain areas of the facility where they could hide behind a monkey enclosure. And just they would implement testing, but it didn't ever seem like there was any enforcement of it. So the majority of what we were dealing with was outside of a handful of us. Most people just didn't seem to care. And I had quite a few arguments with some of the staff too about, they didn't want my vet techs putting food out for the monkeys in the evening because they left too much of a mess in the morning. I told them I don't care. If I have a monkey losing weight, there better be a cage full of food in there, and they're not eating on their own, not that we're not providing them the food that they need. But I had to have that conversation probably every couple of months. It seemed like every time we seemed to identify one problem and, okay, we're all moving in this direction, working on getting this fixed, it then, would go well for a couple of weeks, and then boom, we're dealing with the exact same problem again a few weeks later. It became where it was just like a never-ending sort of quicksand for me. Where I was complaining about the same things over and over, and people are getting sick of hearing about it. But if you'd stop doing it, I wouldn't have to keep complaining about it.
Yeah, you're on a treadmill. Anytime.
But yeah, it was
labor shortage.
Yeah, it was a situation where
Yeah, I mean, all the good people end up leaving a place like this, and then you're stuck with just the people.
They can't hire anybody else either. They can't find any. If they're reposting the vet job and they can't find someone to fill it, then
I think
you can't enforce the rules, because if you lose somebody, there's no one to fill that spot.
Right. Yeah. And what are some other stories that you experienced while you were there? I know you talked about like a lot of them, like they had liver cirrhosis and they're doing these tests on these monkeys who already have gone through so many other tests. It's like, what is the value of this science? Can you talk about that?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like specifically, there was a liver study being done where we were getting liver biopsies through a laparoscope. And when we went in there the first day, there were so many adhesions and scarring of the liver that it was hard to even get a sample from the liver. And I was, I was just, I don't understand. Like, and then I looked into the group that was being used, and they had been used for a different liver study 1 year ago. So,
So how could that
you know,
be?
so I
Yeah.
question, I don't know how this is telling us anything other than the aftermath of the previous study.
Right, right. And you said escape, and now that's kind of how we found out about you was the escape that occurred. I mean, is this you mentioned that there was danger of escape fairly frequently. Is this something that we should get used to the idea? There's been two kind of major escapes of monkeys this year in America that made the national news. How frequent is this?
Sorry, I lost you again. You were starting.
Should we expect more escapes from these facilities when it comes to monkeys? You mentioned the word escape, and the way we found out about you was because of the escape in Georgia. And there was an escape over.
I found out about her long before that.
Well,
She predicted this that 40 monkeys would be escaped. Well, she didn't exactly predict 40 monkeys would be escaped, but
we've had two major escapes
long
this year.
before that. Yeah.
Yeah.
About just how those cages are so bad. Like
that just seemed to be a good media catalyst.
Yeah.
Right.
So is this something that we're going to see more of? I mean, what's the future here? I mean, is there any hope on the horizon, or are we just going to keep seeing these monkey escapes and see them rounded up and killed?
Well, it's kind of outrageous.
I mean,
I am takes to get attention is escaped monkeys. That's the only thing that seems to get attention. What do you think?
There's a delay. Give her a second.
Okay.
And the multiple traffic accidents, and then the Bainbridge town fighting to keep a facility out. You know, that we're finally starting to get some more public.
Maybe she'll come back.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost you for a second. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, so I heard you. There's the Bainbridge thing and the public attention on these things.
Okay. Well, I was just with
we're all patient because this is a really good story.
Mm.
I like you. It's not every day you get to talk to a lab animal veterinarian who worked at a notorious lab. That is
right. And I mean, it's
yeah.
All
right. Oh, are you there? You can kind of hear some background noise. It's almost like, oh no, we lost her. It's almost like those in power are silencing the voices of these lab animal veterinarians, these lab animal whistleblowers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's,
well, I mean, Alpha Genesis is one of the ones that she said that it was basically a breeding facility that ships monkeys all over to anywhere we need them. It's just the type of exploitation is just so blatant, and I just can't believe that we're still doing it. I mean, every time I hear these stories, I feel like I'm like most people when they hear these stories about, wait a second, monkeys got in a car accident and they're running around the state because we wanted to ship them around the country. There's this whole thing. It's happening so frequently.
She's back. Can we hear you?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Got any other Alpha Genesis stories to share with us?
I mean, I've got quite a few. Like,
yeah.
There's so much stuff that I saw that honestly, I did reach out to some lab animal veterinarians that worked other places. You know, and honestly, they didn't believe some of the stuff I was telling them because it was just so crazy. You know, like a monkey's tail just being snatched off by a staff member. that they were trying to catch the monkey. Yeah, and it was a rhesus too, so it's not like it was a long tail. Although we did have it happen with Sinos as well, but yeah, the I think it was processing was trying to get one of the bigger rhesus monkeys in a group and use the tail to try to keep them from being able to climb up further and rip the entire tail off. And this is where this was like towards the beginning of me working there. And then I found out that the staff member had done it, had been fired 3 months before for breaking a back of an animal. Like, how is this person hired back? And then, tons of, self-injurious behavior that we dealt with where, some of the males would make really deep wounds in themselves, biting on their thigh almost down to the bone, with their sharp knife teeth, because we're not giving them enough enrichment to keep them busy. And in some of those cases, we did end up having to euthanize them, but it was 100% our fault that they're doing this because we're not providing enough enrichment to keep them occupied. We throw them in a cage with no friends, and then expect them to function. It just doesn't work for them. And then we have things like, we did get some new cages in at one point, and we had 2 monkeys lose their tongues on them because they were trying to reach underneath their grate for a piece of food that had fallen because there wasn't, food left in their cage like there was supposed to be. Yeah. So they're trying to get, the last kernel of food that they can find, and using their tongue to try to dig it out, and it gets caught and they end up ripping their tongue off. And that was a crazy call because it was one of our animal care people, who English is not her first language. And she's screaming over the radio and all I can make out is tongue. And I'm like, what is she saying? But she had found a tongue on the floor that she was cleaning, and then we had to go in there and search for the monkey that had lost its tongue because the monkey had already stopped bleeding at that point and was hiding in the back of a cage, from the injury. So,
it was self-inflicted, huh?
Yes, yeah. We have had some that were not, where they stuck their tongue through to a neighbor who grabbed it. But in that case, it was 100% that the cages had issues that, resulted in a very traumatic injury. And I think one of those I was able to save, and then the other one we ended up having to euthanize because they didn't have enough tongue left to be able to eat.
Yeah. And you would think that other lab animal veterinarians, if they believe in the necessity of animal research, would be so angry at a facility like this and would join together and try to stop kind of the worst. But it doesn't seem that that's what's happening at all.
No, exactly. And that's what I thought too. That's why, I kind of reached out to some other vets that I knew through, just common people, about, what can I do in this situation? And that's what I thought too. If you think what you're doing is necessary, then why would you want a facility that is this bad kind of representing you, but that didn't seem to be the case. Instead, every time I've posted anything publicly, it's other vets are kind of attacking about, oh, well, that I'm not sure that happened, but even if it did, that's not what my facility's like. Well, I do think that this is the worst of the worst. But even some of the other stuff that I've heard about at some other places still isn't good. But yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the biggest surprises to me, because in vet school, we're told about how lab animal is the best of the best. You're practicing high quality medicine. You're doing human level medicine. You're doing, these animals are well cared for because of what they're giving to us with their lives. And that just does not seem to be the majority case, really. And then to find out, I didn't know until this happened to me, and I started researching and looking into it. But then to find out that, most of the studies that we're doing in these animals don't even correlate into human benefit. So why are we doing this? We're all supposed to be scientists, right? Like, don't we follow the science? We're just doing this because it's always been done this way and nobody's questioned it. That doesn't make any sense to me. And now that we have got research to compare, it really doesn't make any sense that we're not making more of an effort to move faster to do away with animal research.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It was definitely not what I was expecting to get into. But I don't feel bad about any of the waves that I made while I was there or since then, because as a veterinarian, my concern is for my patients, and I want the best for my patients. And it was made very difficult to do that there, and and to know that is still ongoing is very difficult for me.
Well, Doctor, I wanted to ask you about that. What was the when you did start making those waves? What was the response from your veterinarian community, or just overall? What kind of response did you get?
Not great. At least as far as the company goes. Initially, like I said, there was a handful of people involved, and one was kind of a supervisor over the full facility. And he had worked someplace else, so he knew that this was not the way things should be being done. But then it was, we have to go in incremental steps. We can't move too fast because the owner of the company isn't going to go for that. We kind of have to, work him into it, get him to kind of come along with seeing why this would be beneficial. And just in doing that, it just took way too long for anything to get done. And in the meantime, we're all, feeling worse and worse about not being able to make any headway. The standard burnout, problems, and just kind of going in the office every day, feeling like I'm having to fight to get even decent care for these animals. So one by one, we all eventually would end up kind of leaving. I stayed, and once I decided that I would be leaving, decided just to make as much noise as possible. And I had at least lower level staff that would come to me and tell me they agreed with me and that they were thankful for me speaking up or doing something for an animal, but they were all too scared to speak out.
Yeah.
And so then when I left, I knew that was like them getting rid of me was a major sign to the rest of the staff.
Yeah. Like, oh, see what this is what'll happen to you if you start speaking out. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I've worked at places like that. I've volunteered for organizations like that for sure.
Yeah.
And can you describe the boss, the head guy, the owner of the company, and what he's like? Because I think just his nature so describes any toxic organization that it's like anybody can relate to having a company or an organization run by someone like this. Can you describe his sort of personality? And
I can describe what we were told about him. I only met him just a few times, just in passing. And, when you see him face to face out on the facility, he's riding his bike and he's just, laid back and seems relaxed. And he has this special group of capuchins he likes to go back and visit. But they were in a horrible, horrible building that was had holes in it and rats and raccoons in there. Yeah. But
wow.
Yeah, but then at the same time, he was building a new clinic, and there was some, I don't know what kind of bird it was. We had another doctor there that was a birder. But it was a special bird that they nest on the ground, and if you mess with their nest, then they won't breed that season. So you have to wait for like a few weeks for the nest to move. So he was willing to delay construction to not disturb that bird and her nest. But then we're complaining about all of these ongoing basic things with, just the basics of taking care of the monkeys, not even asking for any specialized equipment. And I'm being told that, don't go talk to him. Things won't go well. You have to know you have to handle him a certain way and be able to talk to him a certain way. And then sure enough, there were 2 doctors that did come through that, did have major issues, and he had been the one that hired them, not the attending vet. So they felt comfortable going to his office and talking to him. But as soon as they brought up complaints, you could hear screaming outside the building, of him yelling at them and kicking them out, that day. Wow. So, yeah. So, that was the reputation that he had when I asked, is this something I should be going over everybody's head about and talking to him? I was warned to not do that. And that's where this one supervisor over the whole facility was like, I know how to talk to him. I know how to handle him. Let me deal with it. We're just going to have to be patient. It's going to be slow moving, that sort of stuff. And that was why, was because he had a reputation of, you complain about anything and he just flies off the handle, about how dare you complain,
It's a how dare you.
Right. And then everything is so secretive, and everybody kind of works in their own little groups. It's not like a cohesive team at any point. So yeah, just it really is no different than the toxic clinics that I had worked in. But the difference was because we weren't dealing with owners bringing those animals in. We didn't have owners there holding us accountable. So, there wasn't much being done. And his attitude is, well, if the USDA didn't write me up for it, then there's no reason for me to change anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And God, I wonder what's going through his head when he's like yelling at people who have complaints. Is it the like, well, it's your job to fix this problem, or is it like I don't know. I wonder what his. You never ended up talking to him yourself.
So. No, I did not. I did not. But I mean, it seems like the people that did talk directly to him, from what they've said, it didn't seem like he was like, well, I can't really do anything about this. That's not my job. That's your job. It was more kind of, I just don't want to hear it. And then the AV that I worked under, the attending vet, the head veterinarian that I worked under, initially, she was like that. I would go to her with issues, and she would say, well, you're the doctor, you fix it. I'm like, but I don't have the authority to do anything to any of these people if they don't listen to what I say. Mm-hmm. And she'd be like, well, you're the one that has to fix it because you're the one there doing it. So it ended up being me taking on a lot more stuff because of that, because of, trying to get it fixed. And, maybe if I can just get a couple of people along with me, we can start making some headway. But yeah, there just was no support from anybody above me.
That's because she didn't have support from anyone above her. Of course she's going to act that way. She doesn't have any support from the person right above her, and the person right above her is a petty tyrant who's upset that anyone challenges his authority in this fiefdom that he's built.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I do think that probably was the case. I didn't feel that way at the time, but now, like, looking back on it, I do think that was like a self-preservation response to her. Like, she knew that there were problems there and that they needed to be fixed, but she wasn't going to go to him about it because she knew what that end result was going to be as well for her. So,
Yeah, she's probably already done it. I mean, like, what am I going to do? Thank you for your concern. Noted. I'll go and get screamed at.
Right.
Thanks. I'll go get screamed at, and still nothing's going to happen. So if you want something done, do it yourself with
Right.
no support.
Yeah. And that's what it ended up being like the whole time.
And so how did this all affect your mental health? Like, what were you going through? What were you experiencing? How did this affect your life outside of work?
Honestly, it took a major toll on me. It was a lot more of a toll than those 8 years working by myself, owning my own clinic and running my own business. I didn't realize it because, you kind of get into it. And what I learned after the fact was, when your body's in that high of a stress every single day, it's just kind of adding to it and you don't even notice it. But just, going in every day feeling like I've got to, some fight I'm going to have to take on, I would come home and wouldn't want to speak to anybody. Wouldn't want to see my family. I've got elderly parents that live close to me. My husband, I pretty much would just kind of like sit and not really engage with him a whole lot. Just because I was just so stressed at the end of the day, and had a very short fuse. And if he complained to me about something, I'm like, my God, I deal with problems all day. I cannot deal with that right now. I really was having a major personality change, from the stress and the guilt that I was going through. And then when I finally did leave, like I literally had to go through treatment for PTSD. And even now I kind of feel like I went, I took a train up to Washington, D.C. last week. And just pulling into the station at Yemassee, I immediately started going into feeling like I was having an anxiety attack, just being in that little town. There's just so much remnants from even this far out of dealing with it. And I'm not a person that had anxiety problems or depression problems or anything like that before this experience.
You worked emergency. You were like a hardcore person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I do have family members that deal with that, but that was not something that was ever a problem for me. But I really
like when you have you develop this thick skin, but it's still undermined when your authority doesn't match your responsibility and you're stuck in the middle. I mean, you're being tortured. Anybody with thick skin can stand the whips and scorns of time when it comes to emergency medicine and stuff like that. But when you've got a tyrant over you, it's impossible. No one can survive that.
Yeah, that's kind of a good way to put it. Yeah.
Working in this horrifying system where it's like you're charged with helping these animals, but you can't help them. It's so
anytime your responsibility doesn't match your authority, you are SOL, and you can't. No one gets out of that.
Yeah, and then there was the guilt. Staying in after the first 6 months, I kind of felt like, okay, I've got my feet wet. I am able to make some changes that are positive. But then, kind of after the next year, especially when the other doctor that was helping me with that stuff left and literally told me, you're going to kill yourself working here. You need to get out. They're not going to change. I stayed in for, another close to a year after that, because I was afraid of what's going to happen when I'm not here, so there was this back and forth guilt about, am I really helping? What else can I do? And I can't stay in this situation. The situation is really affecting me. But at the same time, if I leave, what's going to happen with these animals? And sure enough, the week after I was fired, they had an animal that I would have been monitoring die because it wasn't being monitored under sedation.
Yeah.
And so that probably took me a month or more to get over, just feeling guilt about that, you know. But I know.
How did you know that happened after you left?
Somebody contacted me.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Somebody contacted me and let me know.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I was like, there's got to be somebody out there that's willing to listen and do something about this. So that's when I started contacting people, trying to find out what can I do, you know?
Yeah. I'm so glad you did, and you're starting to try to get the story out. But even after you left, then 40 monkeys escaped from the facility too. And there's got to be, I mean, I know I've left horrible organizations and workplaces, and then you hear stuff that happens, and a little bit of you is like validation. Yes, I was right. Like it wasn't just me. Is there a little bit, I mean, and it's also so sad too. But
yeah, no, I really don't feel any validation, because people, I feel like people are still not listening enough. But for me, it was really more the guilt. But at the same time, I wouldn't have been in a position to kind of prevent those things from happening, because those were things that I complained about. I complained about them not maintaining proper temperatures in the extremes, whether it was hot or cold. I complained about, holes in cages that were not being properly repaired, that sort of stuff. And they just fell on deaf ears and didn't listen. But, it doesn't alleviate some guilt on my part, for the monkeys that were lost because of those incidents.
And this place does just need to be shut down, and it's outrageous at this point that it's still open. And it just goes to show you our systems don't work. Our regulators aren't working. Like, it's still open, and it's still running, and presumably making a profit too.
Yeah. He would brag about that. I would be told, we can't get new cages because there are $30,000 a bank for a bank of cages, four cages there together as a bank. It's too expensive. But then on his website, he's bragging about how they made $1 billion the same year. What? Why can't? Why? But we don't have $30,000 to get new cages. Seriously?
Wow.
Well, there you go. That answers your question. Why aren't they following the science? It's because they're too busy following the money. Of course. I mean, this is how that works. Why buy new cages when that cuts into those margins?
Exactly. And same thing with hiring better staff and staff that has some education and and some experience behind them.
Yeah, or keeping them. People are willing to stay a lot longer at a place if the money's good. Right.
And they know they're not going to get another job that's going to pay that well.
Yep.
In the area, that absolutely is something else that is able to be taken advantage of in a very poor rural area of South Carolina.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for any other lab animal vets who might be in that situation you were in, who might be working at that lab right now? Like, what could somebody have told you that would have helped you? Or, even saying, get out, there's no help. You're like, I don't know. What advice do you have for anybody who's currently working there now and other facilities just like that?
I guess really the only thing helpful I could say is that you are not alone. I know you're being gaslit, and being made to seem like you're just overly emotional or crazy or whatever when you're voicing your concerns, but that is not the case. You are not alone. There are others out there that I was able to reach out through our honor, and when we justify, to find support after I left. So there's support out there, and others that have either gone through your situation and are still in the situation to help you out. I mean, I personally say run, but
yes.
But honestly, you just have to find where you're comfortable leaving that situation, and know that it's not a problem with you. It is a problem with the system. And there are plenty of us out here willing to support you and help you through your decisions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine like you probably signed an NDA or something. Are you worried about that or anything?
No, that was part of a decision I had to make about speaking out and being concerned about, what I did release. But I mean, none of this is proprietary business. We're talking about basic animal welfare, like the most basic needs of these animals that are not being met. That has nothing to do with the business. So that is not anything that can keep you from speaking out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important. Yeah, NDAs don't protect them from crimes. People think that you sign an NDA, that means that you don't report crime. That's simply not the case.
Right. And that was definitely like beat in our head there. Anytime I would make a remark, they would check our phones to make sure we weren't having pictures and videos and stuff. I mean, it was kind of crazy how paranoid they were. But they would use that to beat over our head to kind of try to keep us in line. But yes, the NDA does not protect them from not taking proper care of these animals. So there is no reason to not speak out. You don't have to divulge, the research you're working on or the clients you're dealing with. That's fine as far as the business goes, but that has nothing to do with how these animals are being treated.
So important. Yeah, I mean, I think that they try to bury people and scare them with paperwork and legalese. That seems to be quite the I don't know, in the last 20 years that we see more and more of do not compete clause and the DNAs do not what does DNA
non-disclosure agreement?
Non-disclosure NDA. Sorry. Do not compete DNC NDA. Yeah, it's just a scare tactic.
So what happened? Why did you leave, and what did you do after Genesis?
Well, it's another, like, nothing is straightforward in my dealings with this company. So I was at the other site, and they brought in a new head vet for that site from another notorious company that owned where they were working. She came in and was undoing a lot of the training and education that I had done with the staff to get our staff kind of to where we were having, some really good functioning with the staff and them getting along. So me and her had kind of butted heads a little bit about undoing some of the training and her not willing to be involved in the training that me and all the other doctors at the company had set up. And then I was accused of refusing to see an animal that had been pulled from a group, and that was not the case at all. But she immediately reported me and pretty much told them no matter what, she didn't want me working at her site anymore. So turned out that animal had actually had a mass in its throat that was causing some breathing problems that was not diagnosed until after it was euthanized by her. So anyway, so she accused me of me being the one treating the animal inhumanely. And the other doctor that was with me at the time, like there was no investigation. So like they literally locked me out of my office, wouldn't let me on the facility. So anyway, at the time I was in the process of moving over to the research group. So I talked to them. They said, no, we know this isn't something that you'd have done, but at the same time, she's brand new. She's our head vet over there. We want to keep her happy. So fine. So they put me in a new role back at the UMSC campus. But then after a few weeks, they were wanting me to be on call. Well, being on call is for both facilities, meaning I would have to go over to that other facility. I said, well, I don't have keys anymore. I'm locked out. I don't have an office. I don't have anywhere to keep a spare pair of scrubs over there. And you're not supposed to transport between facilities. So, no, I'm not comfortable being on call. So they come back to me a few weeks later and say, well, you can be on call without going over there. What? No, I can absolutely not be on call on a weekend when there's no doctor on site and not be able to go verify myself what's going on with the animal. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
So then in the end, as I'm getting more and more complaining and putting out more and more emails about complaints, in the end, we were supposed to have a conversation about the on-call scenario. And instead, after I sent an email about us having an exhaust problem and the ammonia levels being so high, it was not safe for staff to enter the building, much less the monkeys that are living in there. I was called to the front office the next morning and fired on the spot.
Yeah.
And was told it was because I was refusing to be on call after hours, which was, completely mischaracterization of everything that was going on. So, I know it's a long story. I probably don't need to go into all of that, but I mean, that's just me. I'm just fully transparent about everything.
We appreciate
and the fact
the detail because that's so many stories of people who voice concerns are then fired, and they paint this story that it's you're the problem.
Right.
That's why, and they make a compelling case that almost makes you feel bad, like you did something wrong, but you're not. Like, and I just want to say you did nothing wrong. And I've had the same thing happen to me.
And that's what, that like as a vet, especially somebody that cares for my patients, being accused of being cruel to an animal, it's like the worst thing you can accuse me of. But I'm like, are you kidding me? Of everybody on this facility, I'm the last person you could accuse of cruelty to an animal. And I refused to sign the paperwork, and kind of went in on the HR person, did you ask this doctor? Did you ask these specific techs that were involved? Well, no. And then in the end, she had to admit that they were just trying to keep this new supervising doctor happy because they needed her to stay on because it had taken them so long to find somebody. So, but it was not a, I kind of feel like it was part of them doing what they could to push me out at that point. So,
yeah, absolutely. So what did you do after that? Like, and did it hurt you financially to be let go? And then you're also struggling mentally with everything you went through. Like, how did you recover and what did you end up doing after that?
I immediately just went back to doing the relief work. And at the time, there was an emergency clinic that I had already been speaking to about a possible job. So I was able to immediately start picking up shifts with them. In the end, I ended up not taking a full-time position. And that was mainly because I didn't feel like my mental health would allow me to work a full-time position at that point. I really just needed some time to figure things out and, get my mind right. But I was able to put enough shifts together that it really didn't financially hurt me too bad. I lost a retirement and I lost, having corporate health insurance, and all of those benefits that you don't normally get at most smaller owned small animal practices. But yeah, I mean, because of my relief work, it didn't really hurt me too bad. It was more, I'd work like 3 days in a row and be like, man, I need a break. I've got to have a break. So, and being able to do the relief work and pick up shifts when I felt like it was helpful in that recovery.
Yes, relief for the win. I love relief, and I definitely went through that where it's like I just can't work as much as I used to after suffering from a similar situation. It's so what is your vision for, like, I mean, I just think we should be able to sue these companies for causing such psychological distress on workers like this, but
California, you might be able to.
yeah, do you envision any path forward for what we what should we be doing? What if you could launch some sort of campaign right now, what would it be? Would it be close Alpha Genesis down, or would it be something else? What do you think?
I mean, eventually I would like to see animal research go away completely.
Yeah.
But I know it's not that easy of a road. We're talking about, gosh, tens of thousands of animals, that would have to be cared for. So, my ideal pie in the sky is that all of these labs close down and we have a bunch of sanctuaries pop up that can afford to take care of them. But I know that's not realistic. So, if we have to do it one piece at a time, anything that makes a positive move, I'm for.
Yeah.
So the latest thing from the CDC saying they're not going to require animal research anymore, that's a huge step. And if the FDA would do that, that's the reason most of this research is being done anyway, is to meet the FDA qualifications for drug authorization. So, if we could accomplish that, then, I think eventually the private labs are going to have to follow suit and go to the alternatives as well. So eventually I would like there to be no animal research unless you can prove there is some link between that and the outcome for humans, because otherwise there's no reason to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of like envision there's so many animals out there and so many humans out there who aren't getting the care and diagnostics they need, and how many, like, we're all about saving lives and improving the welfare of people, and that's the kind of the goal of animal research, is to find cures, save lives. But if right now so many animals and humans cannot afford medical care, isn't that really where the front lines of research should be, is how to expand access to care? And if we were able to redirect our resources towards more epidemiological studies by providing diagnostics to humans and to animals and funding that as part of a study, I think that's kind of the direction research should go. Like, let's do more diagnostics. When an animal comes in, if their people can't afford a CT scan or a PCR panel for respiratory diseases, like, if they could be part of a study like that would, rather than purposefully infecting animals in a lab and then seeing, if they have that disease, or seeing if the vaccine works and all of that stuff. So that's kind of my vision for how we do this. But also, like,
I think it's all together. Like, I think it's all together. I think the solution has to be multifactorial. And that's the number one excuse we keep hearing for these drugs that are, $1,000 a month that people can't afford and that insurance isn't going to cover, is, well, we had to put so much into the research to get it to the market. But we wouldn't need to if we're not wasting 2 and 3 years at a time on useless research on these animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Useless and expensive and horrific research on these animals.
Right.
And I just imagine how much more change rapidly could we make if we inspired more veterinarians like you to start to speak out about the industry. And we're veterinarians, we're people with authority on this. If we started talking more about this, wouldn't maybe that dismantle it a little faster?
I mean, I would hope so. Because people will say, well, we're not like animal welfare people. No, we are. That is your number one job, is you're concerned about the welfare of your patients. You know, and we absolutely discuss animal welfare in vet school. You know, and I am thankful that there are a lot more like research assistants and researchers that speak out, because I think we need their help too. But I do think more vets that have a problem with this, and even under other industries, I think it is important for us to speak up and be a voice, and recognize our expertise in those areas that give us the reason to be the authority on what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in our oath. So what do you have hope, and what gives you hope right now?
I mean, right now, the CDC announcement is very helpful. And knowing, you know, even if we're taking it from an approach of, you know, finances, I know that is a big concern with the current administration. So that gives me hope that people are paying more attention to alternatives that are cheaper and faster to use. You know, my biggest concern is if we move too fast, what are we doing with these animals? What's going to happen with the animals? I'm very concerned about that end of it. But honestly, we have to get moving in the direction that we're all in agreement that this has got to stop. And then we come up with solutions from there. So I am optimistic that we are at least now this year seeing more headway that way. And then, you know, the Bainbridge exposure and the wreck exposure is also letting the public see a glimpse behind the curtain. You know, those monkeys, it's horrible that those monkeys were getting shot on the side of the road, but they weren't exactly headed to Disneyland for monkeys. They were going someplace where they were going to be tortured and eventually killed in just as horrible ways.
Absolutely. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to speak about before we let you go?
No, I think we mostly covered it. I hate my internet was not being cooperative for us to have a more free-flowing conversation. But yeah, my big thing is just I'm going to continue speaking out, letting the public know what's really going on at these facilities, and you know, do what I can to influence legislatures to continue moving towards more successful scientific progress that will eventually mean these animals don't get used anymore and we stop importing them into the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's huge too.
Yeah, I mean, the Cargo Act is something that I've been talking about for a long time, making it just illegal to import. I mean, that would go a long way. And stop American funding research overseas on these animals as well. I feel like these are huge dents that are already making their way through Congress, and with a little support, we might actually be able to get them done.
Yeah. So, and that was not the case, you know, when I was working at Alpha Genesis in the 2000 to 2003 timeframe. So, you know, I am feeling a little bit more optimistic with the amount of progress that I think we have seen this year. I just hope we can keep the momentum going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope more veterinarians will hear it and will consider speaking up, and will start, you know, joining together and make more change. So thank you again for talking with us. And thank you so much, and for putting up with my sorry internet out here in rural Georgia.
We're privileged to have you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kathy.
Sure, anytime. Thank you.
Sir Heath.
Well, that was great.
Yeah, I loved it. You know, we were talking about USDA inspectors, and it's easy to blame them too, but there's 100, according to the Congressional Research Service, they indicate that 122 inspectors that's all they have at the USDA. 122 when they're all full up. They say that they have between 100 and 122, but when they're all full up, 122, and they are inspecting 11,785 facilities across America. So, I mean, I'm sorry, it's just not going to get done.
And I applied to be a USDA inspector. I'm still waiting to hear back. But USDA, if you're looking for anybody, I am
Well, they need
down
someone like
to.
you who's going to take it seriously, right?
Well, I think they all are. Like
Yeah, probably.
I've spoken to a bunch of USDA people, and they're great, but their hands are tied too. And they also, what I envision and what's lacking is the animal advocacy movement rallying behind these inspectors and these USDA inspectors, because if they know that activists have their back and will support them when they start to file violations, but often if the veterinarian says, I have everything I need, there's no problems here, they don't feel like they can do anything, but they actually can, and they need people, animal attorneys, other people to explain to them what options they have. I think this is true with veterinarians working for animal services departments too. They often don't know how much power they really do have. And, that's, instead of activists taking upon themselves to do stuff, give support to the people who are actually legitimately there and trying their best, and start talking to people who are working on the inside who just need more attention, more people to help them do their job and put these companies in the place that they need to be, which is out of business.
Yeah, which is out of business. Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of these guys, these inspectors, with 122 of them, and violations being so rampant, then they're only going to report the worst of the worst. This is the other thing. When you hear about USDA violations and you hear about it being so horrible, it's because they've only seen, like, that's all they can report is the really egregious stuff. So, yeah.
And it's the whole frustration with other veterinarians not supporting somebody who's working in an atrocious lab. In research veterinarians too, it's like, if you believe in animal research, shutting down alphagenesis should be your priority. But instead, you're just saying, you're just defending the industry as a whole, like we are, because even the idea that like one company could be bad, does that threaten the whole industry? Maybe it does. If you continue to insist these are highly regulated companies doing this very important work, and then we shine a light and say, like, actually, look at that one. No, it's not highly regulated. If that gets out, like, oh, your whole system, your whole argument fails. It's not.
Right, and
The animals
whole
are
industry
suffering.
becomes suspect, right? I mean, this is the fact that these people are making this much money is just, it's just mind-boggling. It's just so wrong, and I wish that we had more people like Dr. Kathy Strickland out there. Hopefully, she'll inspire people to also speak up.
4,000 monkeys bringing in $1 billion to that company. My God. But it also reminds me of kind of the shelter medicine world too. I think we get attacked a lot for various things, and there is this impulse to, like, whenever you hear something bad about an animal shelter, I get this impulse of like, wait a minute, people in animal sheltering work do this because we care. How dare anybody?
Yeah, you get defensive.
Criticize one of my colleagues who's like trying to manage the problems of society. But we also have to acknowledge that there are inherent problems with the animal sheltering world. It's a business model or it's a kind of a model based on we have to adopt these animals out. They're commodities in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think that when you criticize that world, or any world, it could be the activist world, we've run up against that as well. To critique those things is a benefit. It's a benefit for all. I mean, if you're criticizing the shelter medicine or the vegan activist world, that should make a more robust and healthy.
But it's the whole Cassandra, the Cassandra mythology of,
Yeah.
Zeus, Cassandra.
She's blessed with the ability
She
to foretell calamity, but no one will believe her. She's cursed that no one will
because she
believe her.
rejected the advances of Zeus, then he cursed her with, nobody's going to believe you now. And literally that's everybody. Anytime you object the advances of the lab animal industry, or reject the romantic advances of some animal rights leader, you are now cursed with, nobody will believe you.
It's true.
When you start to say, hey, there's some problems here, you're headed off a cliff, nobody's going to
look out
believe
for
you.
that tree. Yeah, no one look out for that tree. They never listen. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for everyone on a lot of people over on Twitter. Thanks everyone on Our Honor YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Oh, we got a few people on Facebook as well. Thank everyone for being here. And don't forget to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. And make sure you go over to ourhonor.org/donate so you can make a donation to help the important work of Our Honor. If you like conversations like this, you like supporting whistleblowers, you like inspiring veterinarians to follow their conscience, please do us a favor. Do the whole world a favor and go to ourhonor.org/donate. That's it. That's the whole show. All right. Yeah. I thought you were gonna say something.
No.
All right. Thank you.
Donations match through the end. Please donate. Your donation is worth double. So ourhonor.org/donate. Please do. Continue.
10 will get you 20 over at ourhonor.org. Make sure matching donations to the end of the year. Awesome. Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you.